Welcome to Quantum Revenue Expansion, where we share time-tested strategies to turn your annual revenue into your monthly revenue. Ready to up-level your business and your life? Then you will love listening in on the lively conversations Ursula has with her clients and guests as they share exactly what they did to grow and scale their business exponentially. Plus, you will discover how to experience more freedom, joy, and peace in your business and your life right now. If turning your annual income into your monthly income is your next step, then join us at the next 2X Intensive. Go to ursulainc.co/apply.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Quantum Revenue Expansion, the podcast where we help you turn your annual income into your monthly income. And today we have part 2 of how to step out of the hustle and double your sales. And we have very cool, very amazing Rebekah Hall back. Hi, Rebekah.
Hey.
We had so much fun doing part 1, and it literally felt like we talked 30 seconds, but it was 30 minutes. We just covered so much. So if you haven't listened to part 1, go back and listen to part 1, because we talked about how to set up, how to really figure out what you want in terms of not hustling anymore. And then the mindset you need to make the changes that you really want to make. So go back and listen to that if you haven't yet. So again, today we're going to dive into taking that desire of working less and making more and bringing it into reality. And we're going to share some of our stories and some of our client stories and just really have a conversation about how to do that. So glad you're here. Grab your favorite beverage and let's have a chat. So Rebekah, last time again, we were talking about, really setting up that, getting clear on the desire. Here's what I don't want anymore. I don't want to work all the time. I definitely don't want to work with clients who aren't a good fit. Like, we started to get clear on that piece. And then the mindset of, and really like the permission slip of, I don't have to be in the hustle anymore.
Yeah.
But that's even a possibility for me. So what do you want to recap there before we dive in, or like what's kind of popped up for you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that hashtag grind, hashtag hustle is dead to me, right? So anyone that says that to me now, I'm like, no. And, just look at TikTok or any of these influencers, or, a kid that, what did he win? 1.8 million or something ridiculous for being a Minecraft champion. So, when your parents told you that, video games fry your brain and you'll never make a living doing that, now they have to eat crows. So things change. It's time to throw out those old beliefs, or, throw out the things that aren't working for you. And I don't mean not just not working financially for you, but just aren't working for you. If you're losing sleep, or you're stressed, or your relationships are suffering, even your relationship with yourself, because you put yourself last and the business first, hopefully after you listen to the last episode that you threw all that out the window, because we're ready to start fresh now and show you what can happen when you do throw those things out and are willing to step into the next level.
Yeah. So exciting. So this, second part 2 is about bringing it into your reality. And Rebekah and I are going to dive into some of the work we do with our clients, our private clients, and how we help them shift this. Because I'd like to say it's just one conversation and they're good. A lot of times it's okay, we're going to chip away at this, right? We're going to chip away and first figure out what you want, because sometimes we think we know what we want. We start to go down this path. We're like, oh, this is gonna be so much better. I'm so much happier. And then all of a sudden you hit something. You're like, no, like that. I thought it would be this way and I thought it'd be that way. This one thing, Rebekah, you say all the time. You're like, businesses evolve, people evolve. We keep changing, things keep shifting. So it's being so honest with yourself that it might almost be painful, right? That's the hard part. You shared a story before, or on the part 1 of the podcast, you shared the story of how there was just a moment where you were done in your old life. You had adrenal fatigue, you were, so maybe let's start with that a little bit more. When you made the decision to leave the hustle, what was the internal conversation that you had to have? And what were some of your first steps just to get out of it?
Yeah. I mean, I felt at that time I didn't have a choice. And, you think about how things show up. And I really believe that if my body hadn't had started acting up and all the things that I was having happen to me, I would have kept going. like I have an extremely high pain tolerance, an extremely high sense of willpower, and I just would have gone till to the grave, right? Like I'm gonna die trying. What a terrible, what a
Wow.
terrible
Yeah.
saying, right? So, I think that's part of it. And then the other part is like just really trusting the universe. And, whether the universe is God or whatever being, deity, just belief. I mean, for me personally, my belief is that there is something out there bigger than us. There's just way too many coincidences or whatever you want to call, experiences. So part of it's like trusting that the universe has your back. Like I'm not alone.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing too is I dropped a lot of expectations about what success looked like, what my life needed to look like materialistically, or even what I deemed as like safety, right? Because I'm not really a Lamborghini girl or a yacht girl. If you are, awesome, no judgment. But I'm not willing to put the effort for those things. And mostly it's the effort to maintain them, not the effort to own, to buy them. But so when I really like said, hey, this is actually what I need, not just monetarily, but like I need a roof over my head, I need my relationships, all of that. Like that really was the building blocks. And I think we've all done it. We've all been in roller coasters of income or revenue where like things are awesome and you're at the bar and you're like, drinks are on me, or like, let me get that lunch for you, or I'm really going to wow everybody this Christmas, right? And then you've been on the other side of that where you're like, crap, and you're going through like, okay, not eating out, top ramen looks good for the next 4. I mean, we've all been there.
Yeah.
And so when you see the capacity you have to like stretch or constrict to what's happening around you, like that's actually very powerful. And so like I had shared in the last episode, when I had like made that shift, like I had savings, but I was not making new money. And as the savings dwindled, like it's interesting when your back's against the wall, and not in a bad way. But like the pressure kind of builds, and then like you really get open to what's possible. And I think that's really where you have that relationship with the universe, and it starts delivering when you get to that point of surrender. And so that really was the turning point for me. And so what was interesting is, as I shared in the last one, it took about 14 months, and then I was making twice as much money for half the work. That happened in about 14 months. What happened beyond that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, is my container had to change, because what happened is I got to the point where I was coaching 103 businesses at one time. And I was training, I was doing on-site training at different areas of the country, like probably another 4 to 6 days a month. So what's funny is like with my new set of rules, I had actually built myself back into a very similar container before. I mean, a lot better container. Like this container was nicer. I was kind of like, captain of my ship. It wasn't as stressful, but now I'm back into a lot of time for money again. So that really, I had to like look at it again and restructure again what I needed my container to look like based on what my new goals were, or what honestly, what my evolution was. And like you mentioned, we're always evolving. There's always a variable that you can't control, or there's a variable that changes. There's some things now that I used to do for money back in the day that I'm like, there's no way I would do that now. Like, and things just change, value changes, your target market changes. At this point, I have had so many conversations and have coached so many thousands of businesses. Like I've got some good stuff to share now. It's not like, the very first coaching I did, which, not that those people didn't get value because they were paying less, but that's the evolution. And I think a lot of people miss that. It's like they get on that same hamster wheel, and that's what keeps them stuck. And so it's really like letting yourself flower and evolve and take advantage of all the awesome tools we have right now to be a solopreneur. I mean, when I started, we didn't have the internet. There was no like, I'm going to do a Facebook Live, or I can reach thousands of people with this post. And so like, that's the evolution. And that's why you have to be so susceptible and surrender to change, because change is good.
Yeah, such a great point. And we do live in a different world now. We have so many tools. And I remember, like, for me, I'm an ambivert. I can be introverted or extroverted, but a lot of people think I'm extroverted, but I'm not. Like, I need quiet time. Like, I need time to recharge. And they say that's an introvert. Okay, fine. So what was tough for me is that there was this in the industry at the time. It's like you had to be at every live event to matter. Or at least that's the story I told myself. Like, you had to be on all these stages or people wouldn't know who you are. You couldn't grow your business. And I invested so much time on just trying to be on all the right stages, and it was exhausting. And I remember this was before hashtags, but if there would have been, hashtags, it would have been, play big, right? It's all about playing big. And I was like, what does that really mean? Like, you're supposed to be at the top of your game. Well, how many people can be at the top at the same time? Not very many. And at the end of the day, some of those who were at the top are no longer at the top. And, like, it shifts. And I thought, I don't want to play that game energetically.
Yeah.
And over the last few years, one of the things I think in my head a lot is staying in my own lane might feel like somebody might be like, you're playing so small, but I'm not, because I'm still growing a really successful company. And so if you feel like you've been really pushed by this idea of like, play bigger, I invite you to ask yourself what that really means. And is that even what you really want? This day and age, we can be pretty visible staying right here. You can be really visible right here on your computer. And so starting to just strip away what you thought success had to look like for you and start to really get clear on what you want. And then go in and create your intentional schedule. For some of you, I did a podcast recently really about creating your intentional schedule. So I'm just going to highlight what I shared there because I want Rebekah to tie in like what she works on with our clients. But your intentional schedule begins by setting your revenue goal, right? Like, let's say it's 7 figures. And then the next question isn't, well, how much do I have to work to have a 7-figure company? The next question is, how little do I want to work while growing my 7-figure company? It's a very different question. And so I'd even play with that for yourself. Like, how much do I want to work? I mentioned one of our other clients, he went from 100 hours a week to 40 hours a week. He loves working 40 hours a week. Like, for him, that's like his barometer. For me, 40 hours right now is too much. I have an 8-year-old son. I have other interests. I have real estate. Like, I'm just doing a whole, like, just lots of other things that I got going on. And also in the world of coaching, Rebekah and I know, and other coaches who are listening, like, you can't, like Rebekah said, she was coaching 100 clients a month or more. You can't, like, you'll burn out, right? So finding that balance depending on what you do. We have another client who works, she runs a multi-million-dollar product company, online product company. She works from 10 to 2, maybe 3 or 4 days a week. I'm not even sure if she works that much anymore, but it was very intentional. So I'm highlighting this for you because this is where you begin. And you might even want to stop the recording for a moment and just ask yourself, like, what's my revenue goal over the next 12 months? Where do I really want to be? Not what I think I'm supposed to do, or, if I just increase by 20%, but what's that number that's been in your heart that you've wanted? And write it down. And then underneath that, how many hours do I actually want to work? Not that I think I have to get there, because it's a totally different conversation. Like, just separately, how many hours do I want to be working given what's going on in my life right now? So I can stop the recording for a moment and write those 2 things down and then come back. All right, now we're assuming that you've written those things down for yourself. So I'm going to toss it to Rebekah. So Rebekah, let's say one of our clients has shown up in your world. She or he wants to grow a 7-figure business and they want to work 25 hours a week.
Right.
And I know you have an amazing process that you take them through, but how would you work with this client? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I think, to piggyback on what you said about, what's your goal? Like, what's your success? I don't know where it happened, but somewhere it got confused that we all have the same bar we're trying to hit.
Yes.
And so we're all scrambling, right? I think that's where #hustle, #grind even came from, is like, oh, here's the bar. So when Ursula talks about that question, those 2 questions, it's really about you figuring out what is your bar. Like, where do you want to go? 7 figures, more, less? And when you really look at, like, you probably heard us talk about how business is a formula. This is part of the formula. The formula is like, how much do you want to make? How much do you want to work? And then the other pieces of that, we would like mold with you on, who are you serving? What's the vehicle or the platform that you deliver when you solve a problem or meet a need, right? That's your product or service. Your product or service solves a problem or meets a need. And there's a lot of variance there. And so that's where pricing comes in. And that's how, because I already kind of hear some people, Ursula, being like, okay, Ursula, I want to make $1 million. I only want to work 10 hours a week, like a challenge. Well, that's possible if you actually bring in the other things, which is like who you're serving, the pricing, and the problem that you're solving. I've got a really good friend that talks about too many times people think about who they think about what they want to sell. And then they're like, okay, that's what I'm going to sell to everybody. And he's like, what you should do is say, what problem is there out there that I can solve, and who can I solve that for? That's much faster, much more the money that you want to be making for the least amount of time. So that's where you want to start first, is like, what is your bar? And then like, what do you want to work? And then we can help you actually put the rest together when it comes to pricing and the medium or the platform that you're delivering your product or service on. That's why it is possible to make 7 figures working 10 hours a week. Because those are the other things that we bring into the mix. So remember, just a few minutes ago, I was talking about how awesome my first transition was and how I'd built myself back into the same problem. So at that time, I had a coach, and my conversation with my coach is like, so things are going amazing and I'm exhausted again. I'm working from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Not like straight, but that's just like those are the caps of my workday with these weird breaks in between. But somehow I'm like still not showering till 10 a.m. I'm not doing the things I want to do in my personal life. I'm eating lunch over my computer while I talk to people. And then, I have weird gaps that I like don't know what to do with. And she talked to me about time blocking. And I was like, that sounds very corporate and I'm not interested in that. But she talked about like your intentional schedule. And like, this is something that you design so that you have everything that you want. And that really was like a turning point for me. And I kind of went back and I thought, man, okay, so what does this look like? And I was like, sleep is so important to me. Like, that's really like my number one thing at the time. And I thought about it. I'm like, if there's an average of 30 days a month, okay, and there's 24 hours a day, that's 720 hours a month that I have to work with. Mm-hmm. And that's where I kind of developed my 720 process. And so I really figured out how to have everything that I wanted: work, relationships, bill time, food prep time, date night, reading time, personal development time, Candy Crush time, golf time, whatever. And when I developed that system, my whole world changed because I got very in synchronicity. I wasn't like doing this type of energetic task and then quickly switching to then you need this type of energetic task. I really created a flow to my life. And also I got everything I wanted. And what's nice about the system is it's you can redo it over and over again. So as things change. So when COVID came, a lot of things changed about my life because I had to be on a plane all the time. And then we figured out how awesome Zoom was, and that was still super effective. And so I literally got 2/3 of my time back just not flying. So I taught myself how to play the piano. I took up golf. I started the foundation with my wife, and we do all these things. I started reading fiction books for the first time in 10 years because I felt before the only time if I was going to spend reading, I had to be working on myself. And now, I do it for pleasure and for working on myself. So it was just such a fantastic, again, evolution. And when you get intentional about it, you really see where you can fit these things and have a more full life. Well, guess how much better my coaching got when I actually took care of my not working self. Huge, a lot more present, a lot more, able to just really come up with awesome solutions and brainstorm with our clients. And I'd even point to the fact too, Ursula, that in the evolution of Ursula Inc., we made some very clear boundaries or declarations of like, hey, we love helping entrepreneurs and we want to continue to do this, but it needs to change from where what we were doing, because we're just ready to go to that next level. Personally, like you said, we both have other interests in other businesses and real estate and my foundation and things like that. So when we designed that and then stepped into it, like that was a huge evolution for us. And I mean, like the fact that our client success rate has like gone through the roof and our clients are seeing numbers that they've never seen before during one of the worst, like, economic, whatever, however you want to look at it, times in our country or in our world. Like, that's the power of being willing to change and shift how you believe and letting those things show up for you. So it's been ridiculously powerful just to use that 720 tool and evolve into the next level of business with you and personally.
Yeah, that's a great reminder too of the story. Like, we joke about it now, but when COVID hit, I mean, we had events scheduled in California and Minnesota. We had clients who were scheduled to attend in person, and all of a sudden it just stopped. And I knew, like, at first it's like, oh, it's gonna be 2 weeks. I started talking to some of my friends who were, in like Apple and Google and some of the bigger companies. And they were saying at that point, 2022, 2023, like they were already like, we're not going to have live events. This is a real pandemic. And I thought, oh no, like this is going to trickle down to us. And so it was like, we don't like change. You talked about this. We don't, as humans, we like things to stay status quo. Our reptile brain, that little part of our brain that says, no change, right? To stay safe. We don't like things to change. We're always looking for changes in our environment because our brain is trying to say, like, is there anything I should fear? And so we fear change. And a lot of times we don't even evaluate what that is. So it was fear filled in that moment. I thought, what are we going to do? And then it just became really clear. I was having a conversation with my husband, Tim, and he was laughing at me because I said, this is it. Like, we're going to shut the company down. It's all over. And he's like, okay. He's like, have you heard that thing called technology? Heard of technology? I'm a tech person, right? So I was like, why don't you guys use it? And I was like, okay. And, as Rebekah mentioned, it turned out better. Like being on Zoom with our clients, we have clients, we expanded internationally. We have clients in Australia and New Zealand and Canada and, all over now. And we could have done that. They don't want to fly to Minnesota. They don't want to fly to California. We want access and we want it now. And so it's such a blessing. But in that moment, so for those of you who are like listening to this going, yeah, I want to make change, but I have no idea how to get it. I feel your pain. Like, I feel like it's scary. It's like, we're afraid of the unknown. And in that moment, Rebekah, you talked about this, like sometimes your back is against the wall. Sometimes you just know it's time. Like you just can't keep going. And we couldn't because of the pandemic. And so we literally burned the old company to the ground. I love saying that because I feel like we did, because it's totally different today. I mean, the programs we offer, burned it to the ground. There was nothing left of what we used to do other than, one digital course that spun off. So we still have that content, but it was like the Phoenix rising, like the new courses that came out of it, the new coaching programs that came out of it are way better and so much more impactful. And I don't think it would have happened without that push from the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So you talked about that became like, once we made that change, we created the new container, but also, as you said, with the new container, we wanted to be living what we teach our clients, which is like, you don't have to work all the time. You get to have other interests, you get to have a life and run a very successful and profitable business. And so Rebekah, you and I had to get really clear, like we have to live that life as well. And so that's why today you take clients through your signature 720 process. I talk a lot about in selling with intention. We talk about creating an intentional schedule and, starting with vacations off first and deciding, do you want to work 2 days a week, 3 days a week, like, really getting clear and narrowing that down. And then once that's all in place, the next step is really to maintain it. Right? Mm-hmm. How does this new life become a habit? Because Rebekah, as you shared, you made all those changes. And then in your new company where you were leading, all of a sudden you were working all the time again. Like the money was great, but you're working all the time. And so what's your best advice on how to take what we just talked about and allow it to become a true habit?
Yeah. I think this is a part where if you've heard Ursula before, you've heard us before, and you've listened to part one of this is really going to be a key element to why we do so well with our clients and why we're so much in our essence with the coaching. There is a part where living this way, it is a dedication and it's a craft, which means that maintenance habits or being willing to be vulnerable, seeing something that's bigger than yourself, whether that's assistance or opportunity or possibility, or being willing to change. This is like, to me, I wish I could teach so much more on this change and vulnerability piece, because We've lived it. I've lived it several times. If I was to look back and look at the roadblocks in my life, personally and professionally, and when I was willing to show up vulnerably and open to change, there's just something, if I can even use the word spiritual, or you can use the word mystical, but that is a key component to, in my mind, to doing this work. Because, people have asked me, and I've shared this so many times about what makes a business successful. And here's the truth. It's the same thing. All of you need, marketing, sales, finance, customer fulfillment, operations, right? You all need that. And if you've heard me say that before, the one thing that is unique to who you are is the mortar that holds those business bricks together. And this is where we do the practices. This is where I'm going to talk about have a meditation practice, have a spiritual practice, be open to reading, be open to energy work, be open to all that. And, we don't talk about it enough, but here's the thing. You talk about Steve Jobs, any of these guys, any of the big, Timothy Ferriss, anyone that you follow, guarantee every single one of them have a spiritual or mystical practice, whether it's health and intermittent fasting or working out or taking breaks in the mountains or journaling or working with other coaches, some even mediums, some energy workers. Like, we don't talk enough about it because we think it's so robotic and it's so impersonal, and it's not. We all do it. And I don't think enough people talk about it. I think as a society, we're moving more towards things like ayahuasca is like a regular term now.
Yeah.
And again, there's no judgment on what you choose or the legal. It doesn't matter. But I will tell you, both Ursula and I have these metaphysical, quantum, spiritual practices that we do every day, and that we have as a centering or a lifeline when things aren't feeling in alignment.
Yeah.
That's really what you're looking for. Peace is being in alignment. If you're not in peace right now in your business or your life, I would encourage you to look internally and be like, where am I out of alignment? Wherever my alignment in my conversations with my clients, with my family, with myself. Because as we mentioned in episode 1, this is not, the Gen X aren't here anymore. This is not the industrial age. This is the new age of artificial intelligence, which gives you the chance to really tap into what you want. And so being willing to step into that, again, there comes a vulnerability. And I will tell you, for a lot of people, that's what your clients want. They want to know that you're a real person. They want to be relatable to you, regardless of your product or your service. And a lot of people that we work with, you are the face of your company, and that is what people are looking for. So like I said, these practices that we create are habits. We just did a training with our group this morning, and I brought back a very key component of business that I've talked about over and over and over again, even with these clients. But that's the importance of the rinse and repeat, because as ever-changing evolutionary beings that live in a variable world constantly, you do have to have those practices. And I would not be where I am today if I didn't consistently have some sort of practice, or sometimes more than one practice, to keep me moving, to keep me reminded about why I'm here. And so I rely on those heavily myself, to continue my growth, not just as a business owner, but honestly, just as a human. And I really want us to talk more about this, because I think it's very much needed.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And you're right. I do think that people who have created the success that they desired did so very intentionally and had the support through practices, rituals that you're talking about, and things that they leaned on and that were on their schedule. Talking about schedules, that was part of those things are on their calendar. I always say, if it's not on your calendar, it's not going to happen. So having it on your calendar is critical. And also, along with the practices, to tag off what you're saying, the second part would be to be in community with those people you're aligned with, right? Who have similar practices, or who are like you, right? They have a growth mindset. They want to get to the next level. In our world, it's about, our clients are, they definitely have a growth mindset. They don't want to work all the time. They have other interests, and they want to have a really successful company. They also really care about spirituality. They care about, being connected to something bigger than them. They care about people. And they also care about, again, the community that they're in. And so what's been amazing, I think, to see is at our CEO tables, to see how connected not only we get to be with our clients, but our clients are to each other. So much so that they continue in the CEO table. Their year's up, they're coming back, they renew, because they don't want to lose this connection. They don't want to lose this container. And, there's not a lot of places where you can go. Like this morning, we were celebrating with some of our clients who they're a partnership team, and they, it's August and they just surpassed their last year's financial goal. So in August, they've already done more revenue than they did all of last year. That's a big deal. But who can you tell that to, right? Like some family members would just roll their eyes at you, like friends would be maybe a little envious, right? But here, our clients get to come and share all of those things. So I guess just to finalize this, Rebekah, thank you for sharing your insights and your energy and your wisdom. I mean, this is what we do all the time. We get to hang out and have these conversations with each other and with our clients, and we just value you and thank you for being part of our community.
Yeah, it was awesome. I can't wait to see who comes through, because you already know if it's you. So I know Ursula's going to talk about the 2X and that offer that we have for you. And it really is about contributing, not copying. And so, if you're feeling the pull, we would love to work with you, because that, part of the practice is believing that the right people come through our doors. So, and they know it, so I think that's one of the nice things that's happened in this evolution is it's very serendipitous with who we work with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So if you're interested in hanging out, you can go to ursulainc.co/apply. That will be in the show notes as well. And just 30 seconds, send some info, and we'll get a time set up to chat with you. All right, everybody, that's it. We have completed talking about how to step out of the hustle and double your sales. Hopefully you took lots of notes and things that you can apply immediately. And we will see you soon. Bye for now.
Bye, guys.
Thank you for joining us today. And if you are ready to make your next quantum leap, let's do it. Ursula invites you to join us at the 2X Intensive. Go to salescoachnow.com/apply. Don't forget to leave us a review on your favorite podcast app.